He's a seasoned political operative, speaker, pundit, and New York Times best-selling author, featured in the Netflix documentary Get Me Roger. All of these presidents relied on Roger to secure their seat in the Oval Office. Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, Donald Trump. In a 45-year career in American politics, Stone has worked on over 700 campaigns for public office. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give the honor to Roger Stone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. What a great gathering. I can't wait to hear what I have to say. John, thanks. Put me on after Jim Caviezel. Really appreciate that. Folks, I voted today in the historic Florida Republican presidential primary. Well, let's just say I did not vote for Governor Ron DeSantis. No, the polls are now closed. I voted for the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln, Donald J. Trump. And I can report to you that the president swept the Sunshine State primary with over 80% of the vote. And turnout was heavy, which shows the intensity of this man's support and why he is headed back to the White House. What John said is true. I was baptized as a Catholic in St. Mary's Church in Norwalk, Connecticut, one of the most beautiful churches you have ever seen. I received my sacraments, my Holy Communion, my confirmation in St. Aloysius Church in New Canaan, Connecticut. As long as I lived under my parents' roof, I went to Mass every Sunday, but I confess to you that when I left for Washington, and when I had a terrific career as an advisor to presidents, as a lobbyist, I wandered far from the Lord. And then, as some of you may know, because of my long friendship with President Donald Trump, on the morning of January 25th, 2019, 29 fully SWAT-clad FBI agents swarmed my home at 6 o'clock in the morning. They were brandishing fully automatic M4 assault weapons. There were 17 armored vehicles in which they arrived. There was a government helicopter overhead, and they actually pulled 2 amphibious units up to the dock behind my house. And as my friend Sean Hannity likes to say, frogmen carrying assault weapons jumped out on the dock. All of this to arrest me for the completely fabricated crime, the first-time nonviolent crime of allegedly lying to Congress under oath in my voluntary testimony before the House Intelligence Committee. How does one lie about Russian collusion, which now without dispute does not exist? To the extent that I made misstatements to the House committee, they were entirely immaterial. In other words, they hid no underlying crime. The government, even in my Soviet-style show trial in Washington, D.C., in which, to my surprise, all of my constitutional rights to defense were denied me. I was gagged and could not defend myself. My wife and I lost our home. We lost our savings. We lost most of our insurance. I lost my ability to travel. And I was gagged by a judge who would not let me defend myself in public. Yet to this day, the government has never produced any evidence of either Russian collusion or WikiLeaks collaboration on my part. In fact, by July, it became clear as to why I was being put through this crucible. It was when they came to my lawyer and said, look, your client's going to die in prison. We know that there have been at least 26 phone calls between your client, Roger Stone, and candidate Trump in 2016, and if he will simply say that these calls pertain to the drop of the WikiLeaks documents as directed by the Russians, we'll write a letter to the judge in his case urging that Mr. Stone receive no jail time. In other words, they wanted me to lie. They put ungodly pressure on me to lie. They wanted me to bear false witness against the president, and I told them that they could go to hell. Yet, I confess to you, I was angry, I was frustrated, I was depressed, I was drinking too much, I was scared not so much for myself, but for my wife, who is hard of hearing. I didn't know how she would support herself if I was unjustly incarcerated. The morning I was arrested, because she is hard of hearing, she heard none of the ruckus. She didn't know I'd been handcuffed and taken out wearing a Roger Stone Did Nothing Wrong t-shirt. She didn't know there were CNN cameras just totally coincidentally 25 feet from the front door of my house. She woke up looking down the barrel of 2 assault weapons. Yes, I became distraught. And then, thanks to the solid advice of a phenomenal number of clergymen, Father Grady in Fort Lauderdale, Franklin Graham, Pastor Leon Benjamin, Randy Coggins, and so many others, I finally realized that my only salvation existed in being restored in the blood of the cross. So I confessed my sins. I pledged to the Lord to walk in His way. I admit to you, I am a sinner. I know over at the New York Times and the New Yorker and CNN and MSNBC, they snicker about this. Oh, Roger Stone is a Christian. Roger Stone is a Catholic. You know what? I don't really care what they think. I only care what he thinks. So I am restored as a Catholic. What kind of Catholic am I? I'm a Fulton Sheen Catholic. I'm a Joseph R. McCarthy Catholic. Yes, I'm a John F. Kennedy Catholic. As a Nixon man, it's tough for me to admit this, but John Kennedy was an ardent anti-communist. John Kennedy favored a silver-backed dollar. John Kennedy cut taxes on the working families of America. John Kennedy deeply distrusted the intelligence agencies, and he paid for that with his life. What kind of Catholic am I? I'm a Pope John Paul Catholic. I may get excommunicated from the church for saying this, but they can never excommunicate me from Jesus Christ. I don't recognize this pope. Our last legitimate pope was Benedict, and he was forced from the papacy. Yes, only through fervent prayer were my prayers answered. Did President Donald Trump see that I was the target of a politically oriented and motivated prosecution, a persecution, and they were just trying to squeeze me to get at him? 2 days before I was to report to a dank Georgia prison, where I believe the plan at 68 years old and with a lifetime history of asthma was for me to die, the president answered my prayers to Jesus Christ, and he granted me a commutation of sentence, followed that Christmas by a full and complete presidential pardon. Why? Because Roger Stone did nothing wrong. And this has changed my life. 1990, I considered myself a libertarian Republican. I was one of the founders of Republicans for Choice. And then 5 years ago, almost concurrent with my restoration in the faith, my first great-grandson was born. And I changed my views. The Lord touched my heart. I am proud to say today that I am 100% pro-life. And more importantly, I say to you, this is a fight, this is an issue from which we cannot shy, because the position of the Democrats to allow abortion, not only just up until the moment of birth, but after birth, is what New York Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan correctly called infanticide. Their position is the extreme position on abortion. This is a fight that is worth fighting. Let me say that politics was not always like this. There was a time when both parties were anti-communist, when both parties believed in capitalism, when both parties believed in God. But the Democratic Party of John Kennedy and Harry Truman, that party no longer exists. That party has been taken over by a group of radical atheist Marxists who plan nothing less than the full destruction of this nation and our constitutional freedoms. Don't think that this is a fight between Republicans and Democrats or between liberals and conservatives. This is nothing less than an epic struggle between good and evil. A struggle between light and dark. A struggle between the godly and the godless. And you heard Jim Caviezel say it, if we lose, this nation will step off into 1,000 years of darkness. But here's the good news. We have the leader for this moment. I have known Donald Trump for 45 years. He was at my wedding. I was at his wedding to Melania. He is an uncommon man. He marches to his own drummer. He is not managed. He is not handled. He is not scripted. He is 100% genuine. He is the toughest man I've ever met. Now, when you consider that I worked for Richard Nixon, who lost a race for president and then governor of California, only to claw his way back in the greatest political comeback in American history, and that I worked for Senator Bob Dole, a man who was hit by a shell in Germany, serving his country in World War II, a man who was told he would never walk again, he would never use his hands again, he would never feed himself again, but who, through sheer willpower, nursed himself back to functionality, to be a great leader, and who would have been a great president. When I tell you Donald Trump is the toughest man I know, that's saying a lot. They seek to destroy him, and he faces all of this with incredible optimism, with he's incredibly resolute. He's incredibly determined. He's incredibly courageous. Joe Biden said the other day that this is all about Trump. Well, if it were all about Trump, he would just ride off into the sunset. He would just live on this beautiful property or in his palatial skyscraper mansion in the sky in New York, or go to his amazing golf clubs. He could live a life of leisure. No, folks, he's not running for him. He is running for us. Look, I'm proud of my Catholic heritage. I am half Italian and half Hungarian. I'm Italian from the waist down. I'm proud to stand with all my fellow Catholics. Now, some will say, well, wait a minute, Stone, we saw you at the Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church worshiping on a Sunday. It's true. See, I was going to the local Catholic church, but I had real problems with their masking and their social distancing in violation of Florida state law. And when I threatened to sue the Archdistrict, I was politely told that I was no longer welcome in church. So yes, I do attend Sunday services at Coral Ridge. It was founded by Dr. D. James Kennedy. It was actually dedicated by one of the greatest men of the 20th century, Reverend Billy Graham. But let me also say, I say the rosary every single day. Because if you are baptized as a Catholic, you are a Catholic, you will live as a Catholic, you will die as a Catholic, and I am proud of my Catholic faith. It is not a secret that my political mentor was Richard Nixon. I'm also proud to have worked in 3 campaigns for governor, later President Ronald Reagan. And of course, I'm one of the earliest people in the country to urge my friend Donald Trump to run for president. It was Richard Nixon who said that the greatness comes not when things go always good for you, but when you are tested, when you suffer some defeats, some setbacks, when you're disappointed, when sadness comes. Because until one has been in the deepest valley, one cannot appreciate the majesty of the highest mountaintop. He also said that a man is not finished when he is defeated. He is only finished when he quits. My fellow Catholics, my fellow Americans, I implore you to join me in the final battle, because in the fight for America, I, for one, will never quit. God bless you.